Yo, guys, what is going on? Welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast. We have a very special guest for you today. We have Kory Woods, M Live dual beat reporter for the Detroit Lions and the Detroit Pistons, but we're going to be talking about Detroit Pistons today. Kory, what is going on?
Woo! Thanks for having me. This switch back over to Pistons has been pretty brutal. Like you just said, I do a dual role, so I've been covering mainly Lions for the past couple of months, and you know, I think we can all say that as much as we're happy for the season the Lions had, this run to the NFC Championship is a little bit unprecedented. So I had to shift my focus, and now I'm back into basketball and lots to talk about.
For sure. It is Super Bowl Sunday. I did forget to mention that. So before we even talk Pistons, give me your prediction, man. Who's winning this?
I am hopeful. Well, I have no dog in the fight in none of these games, so let me clear that. But for the simple fact that I just cannot take any more Taylor Swift talk, I want the Niners to come out here and drop a bomb on the Chiefs. And I love Patrick Mahomes. I hate it. If Mahomes wins, it won't be the end of the world. If the Chiefs win, it won't be the end of the world for me. I just know that if the Chiefs do win and Kelsey has a game.
Oh man, a buddy of mine
It's going to be sick.
A buddy of mine sent me a text. He's like, "I got a drinking game for you." I'm like, "Okay, shoot." He said, "Every time the camera cuts away to Taylor Swift, we take a shot." I said, "Dude, I'm not getting hammered. No,
No,
because it's
no.
gonna be every 10 minutes. It's gonna be a Taylor Swift cutaway. I can guarantee you that." But I'm with you. I'd like to see the Niners win. Not to say that I don't enjoy watching Patrick Mahomes play quarterback because he's just so fun to watch, but I'm kind of sick of the Chiefs winning. I'd like to see the Niners actually win, even though there's some Pistons fans that are Niners fans that have been talking nonstop shit. You know who you are. But hey, man, like I said, I think it'll be a good game. Kind of sucks that the Lions didn't, beat the Niners in the NFC Championship. But I mean,
Yeah, I would be there right now.
oh, for sure, for sure. Like I said, it'd probably be crazy. Like I would kind of be fearful of what Detroit would look like if the Lions were in the Super Bowl.
It's and the sun is out right now. Oh man, downtown Detroit and wherever the parts of Las Vegas would be nuts.
For sure, for sure. Before we kind of get into the trades that did happen, like recapping them, I wanted to ask you because I did see that you guys did talk to Troy Weaver. I believe it was Friday morning.
Yes.
What were your takeaways from his press conference? Was there anything that like really stood out?
Several things stood out to me like a sore thumb. The first one was Troy was very honest about some things that I wouldn't have expected a GM to be honest about. And the first one is that he alluded to they had better offers last year for Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks. And he said his rationale behind that was that, when they go into the summer, that people may have been saying that this team needed some veterans. And it's true, they would have needed some veterans. But at the same time, I mean, Burks and Bogdanovic is as good of a players that they are. They were getting up there in age. And, I believe that there could have been a possibility for the Pistons to still add veteran talent in free agency while getting slightly younger than, the other side of 30. So I was shocked to hear him admit that they had better offers on the table. The second thing that really shocked me was how honest he was about the Killian Hayes release. He said, on top of it saying that it was a numbers game, he said the reason that Killian did not work here was something that a lot of people have said on social media for a long time. It was the shooting. But I think the real thing that, even though Troy said that he wished Killian well wherever he goes, the fact that he said that he talked to Killian about his shooting ad nauseum. Those were his words. He said he talked to Killian Hayes ad nauseum about improving his shooting. And in 4 years, he didn't shoot above 30% from three-point. And just this season, it was his first season of shooting above 40% from the field. That's an indictment on, like you can say that's an indictment on Troy, but it's really a big indictment on Killian for that to be communicated to him, and there was no real no signs of improvement. So those are the two things that really stood out to me. Like I said, the honesty, and then how the honesty about those situations. Yeah.
I've always had a take about Killian, and like a lot of people associate me with being like the number one Killian Hayes hater. Like I guess I'm the president of the fan club. But I never hated the guy. I just critiqued him from afar. Like when I looked at Killian, it seemed like he plays basketball, but he doesn't love the game. In a sense, where like you said, Troy told him to work on his shooting at nauseum. If you know that's a weakness of your game, like, you know, coming out of the draft, Jaden Ivy wasn't known as a 3-point shooter, but lately he's shooting like damn near close to 40% from three. I mean, he's hitting some really tough, you know, 3-point shots. And, you know, Jaden Ivy's only in his second year, and Killian's going into his like fourth or fifth season. I can't even keep count, maybe fourth season. But just from afar, it's always seemed like Killian is good enough to play basketball, but he's not like a gym rat. Like he's not, you know, putting in extra reps after practice. That's just been my stance. Obviously, I'm not credentialed like yourself, but am I like far off with that take?
Well, I won't say you're far off with that take, because that's what Troy Weaver said. Troy Weaver verbatim said that Jaden Ivy worked on his shooting. Jaden Ivy went from 34% last year beyond the arc to right now he's 37% for this season. Marcus Sasser, I mean, he's a rookie, but they drafted him because he's a guy that shoots well and provides spacing, and he's continuing to work on his shot. He gave another example of Marcus Smart, of a guy who didn't come into the league as a really good shooter, and he continued to work on his shooting along with his overall defensive game. Killian just didn't work on it. So if the general manager, who is able to be in the close practice, because again, we see the practice, we go talk to these guys after practice. We still see them working in the gym on some stuff, but we talk to them after practice. When you see Jaden in there continuously working his shot and all those guys, and then you kind of the GM saying these things, there has to be some merit to it. Troy said these things verbatim on Friday. Yeah. So you're not far off if the GM said it.
It's his body language. Like I remember going to a game last year, and Jaden Ivy was the first one out of the tunnel. It was like pregame. It was like maybe an hour before tip-off, and he's the only one out there. He's working on like dribbling drills, shooting drills, defensive drills. I'm like, this kid's gonna be great. And like, I don't really see that same type of commitment from other guys. So like, when I watched Killian, I was really high on him coming out of the draft. I know a lot of people will tell you that have, you know, been subscribed to this podcast for over 4 years. I was really high on him. I like the potential, but I just didn't see that same type of commitment, I guess, is where I'm going with it.
Yeah. I didn't, at least from what I've seen after practice, I've seen Killian work on some stuff, but I will say I've seen Jaden Ivy out there a lot more. Again, I don't want to get into Kory said Killian didn't work on the shot. No, just going off. Yeah, just going off of what I've seen and going off of what Troy was able to say, because Troy was able to be in there in those close practices.
To me, I think it was probably really hard for Troy to actually say that, because that was his first draft pick.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was looking back. He said I was scouting Killian since he was 16 years old. So, I mean, I know the COVID year was really like weird for a lot of GMs. But to have your first draft pick not even be traded, and you had to basically waive him like last minute, I think kind of speaks volumes to what Killian was as a player in his time at Detroit. I thought he had every opportunity to get better. He didn't really have too many guys in front of him. I mean, he had mentors like DeLon Wright and Derrick Rose, and some really good vets. I mean, um, it's kind of sad to see him leave, but I think he'll get an opportunity elsewhere. I'm sure there'll be teams to look to sign him over the next couple of days. I mean, wish him well, but just want to say I don't hate the guy. Just critique his game. Some people, it's like, dude, you hate on him every week. It's like, I don't hate on him. It's just I wish you would take it more seriously.
I mean, again, I'm not going to sit up here and say that he is a bad basketball player, because we've seen flashes of Killian Hayes having some very solid to even borderline impressive moments. But it's been 4 years, and it's almost as if it's been a straight line. It's just been stagnant. There hasn't been a substantial growth in one area, and as good of a defender as he can be, he very much so hindered the potential of that offense, and especially their spacing. And I believe that it had to have been hard for Troy, because that was a guy that he was the second point guard taken that draft, because I believe LaMelo was the first, if I'm not mistaken. So he was the second point guard taken in that draft, and you also took him over a guy that is now a two-time NBA All-Star in Tyrese Halliburton, a guy that I spoke to personally who thought that he was coming to Detroit. Yeah. So it's, having to pull the plug on a project that on your first draft pick as GM, having to pull the plug on him, and you can't even offer him a rookie extension. Yeah, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, I think we're talking on Facebook. I told you when I was talking to James last month, he had said that the Pistons offered him a rookie extension, but they were really far off on, like, I guess, a price point. The fact that he turned down NBA money is kind of wild to me. Even if it is a vet's minimum, it's a vet's minimum at the end of the day. But I mean, I wish him well. I know it was probably really hard for Troy to like openly admit, like, hey, I told him to work on his shooting and he just didn't. So I mean, he gave him every chance to be great, and he just didn't take it seriously. But like I said, again, I do wish him well. I do want to get into the trades that happened, because there was a lot, and thankfully you could retweet stuff on Twitter and scroll your timeline. So that's what I did during the deadline, just to keep up with it, because it was absolutely wild. I haven't seen a Pistons trade deadline like this probably ever. It reminded me of Troy's. It reminded me of Troy Weaver's first year here during the draft, because that's how active they were.
Trader Troy.
Yeah, for sure. So the first trade that they had was with the Utah Jazz, and it was for Simone Fontecchio. I probably butchered that. But we got
the Fontecchio part right. I'm still confused on whether it's Simone or Simone, but
so just to break down the trade for people maybe they live under a rock, we traded the Jazz a 2024 second round pick, Kevin Knox, and the draft rights to Gabriel Procida. I talked about this earlier this week. So the second round pick is going to be a pretty good second round pick. It's Washington's this year, so it's probably going to be low 30s. Yeah. So we traded that to Utah. Gabriel Procida, I don't know if you're too familiar with him. He was a second round pick, draft and stash, playing over in Europe right now. Who knows if he'll even come to the NBA? I know he was in Vegas this past summer, but he didn't play. What are your overall thoughts on this trade? Because I feel like out of all the trades, this to me was like, oh, we just got a guy for basically nothing.
I think that. So let me first put this one out. So when I put this trade out there on Facebook, everybody was just like, who is he? 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 And my thing is like, don't do that. Just go to YouTube and look him up. He got questions. But in my overall thoughts of the trade, I thought it made sense. You got a guy that can provide spacing. He's younger than Bogey. He's younger than Bogey, but he's older than a lot of the players on there. And he's already, even though he's only been in the NBA for 2 years, he's already a seasoned basketball player. He played over in Italian leagues, 3-time Italian Super Cup winner and a 1-time just a regular Italian Cup winner. That's just a regular, I don't know. But he provides the shooting and the athleticism that they need. And the fact that I think they made this trade with the intentions of signing him long term at the end of the season, I thought it was a smart move. I mean, as great as Bogdanovich is, the guy is up there. He's 35 going on 36, and he's coming off an Achilles injury last year. He missed the first 19 games of this season, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say it's not. I know it's 18. He got cleared around 18. I think he still missed that next game. So I want to say 19. But anyway, you're able to get that shooting, that athleticism, and a guy that can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. We saw that yesterday against the Clippers. So I think it was a smart move. I truly do. I think that this could be with the way that and also too, another thing. Did you see how they were running the floor with him? They were running. It wasn't no pace. They was like almost like a track meet. So I'm curious to see how he gels with that group over these next 30 games. And it was a smart trade. It was time to get rid of both of them. Bogdanovich not getting any younger. Burks was having a down year. So solid move.
Yeah, I thought, I was like, okay, let me do my research because I don't want to fall victim to the the Who crowd, like the Snoop Dogg Who. Like I didn't want to fall into that crowd, right? So I was like, okay, he's 28 years old. He's only played
Hold on one thing. Not to sound crazy, y'all. I know that Kevin Knox was in this trade. I just feel that Simone can fulfill what Bogdanovich and Burks missed in the other trade. So sorry, but I just want to clear that up. So.
Oh no, for sure. We'll probably sign him again this summer and trade him at the deadline. Who knows? Poor Knox. So Simone is 28 years old. So I was like, okay, he's a little bit older. He's only played 2 years in the league. I do remember when the Pistons played the Jazz in that crazy overtime game. He was cooking the Pistons. Like straight up, he was cooking the Pistons, and a lot of Pistons fans were like, why would Utah just like dump him for basically nothing? I was like, well, go look at their front court. They got Lauri Markkanen. They don't really use John Collins, and they just drafted a guy this year. I can't remember. I keep forgetting his name. I don't remember. It was another power forward out of the draft this year. I mean, they were really loaded in the front court, and I felt like he was a guy that Utah wasn't really too attached with. They're like, hey, like our front court is, pretty set for the foreseeable future. Like overall, I really like his game. You mentioned him being able to put the ball on the floor. You saw that yesterday. It was evident. Nothing against Bojan. He was 34. Bojan could put the ball on the floor, but he was really slow at doing it. Fontecchio is just really like sneaky athletic. Like if you watch him, you'd be like, oh, that guy's not going to do anything. He's like running in transition with Ivy. He's like keeping pace with Jaden Ivy.
It's silky smooth.
Yeah, he does. I think some people were like, he's like Bojan and he plays a little bit of defense. I think if you want to compare the two, no disrespect, Bojan was a traffic cone. Simone at least tries out there. I'm not saying he's locked down by any means. Some people are saying, oh, he's a lockdown defender. No, he's not a lockdown defender, but he's passable. Like you could have him in the starting lineup and he could at least close out. He could switch. There's a clip that someone tagged me in of him like blocking Chet Holmgren. Like at least he tries on defense. And I think that was another thing that was really appealing with Troy Weaver and the Pistons is to trade a guy that's younger. Maybe you possibly sign him to a 3-year deal. Maybe give him the Marvin Bagley deal, like a 3 for $36 deal, which I think would be incredibly cheap for a guy that can shoot close to 40% from three.
Yeah, I believe it's a low risk, high reward move that they did by bringing him in here. And now you have a 30-game sample size to see whether you want to bring this guy back for real long term. And it'll be interesting to see how he meshes in there with them. But I think it was a solid move, and they lost Kevin Knox in the deal. They still have a roster spot open, so you could always probably go bring Knox back after he clears waivers. But I mean, and again, Troy Weaver did allude to the fact that they could be bringing somebody to use that spot, at some point throughout the season. So yeah, I'll move it.
Well, before we went on, the Pistons actually signed Tosan Awoma to a 10-day contract. So,
okay,
former G League guy, that's a roster spot. So
yeah, okay, there it is.
I mean, he was with the Grizzlies for 10 days. They didn't, like I said, I just got the notification on my phone. I just see it now. He played with the Crews a little bit this year.
I just see it right now.
Like I said, hey, breaking news while we're doing the podcast. You can never, predict these things. But I think Tosan is just, another wing that Pistons could possibly use. You never know. Monty Williams likes going pretty deep rotations. It seems like it's 14, 15 deep most nights. It's kind of crazy. I do want to transition into the second trade that the Pistons made, and that was Monte Morris, which I was kind of surprised by. If I'm being 100% honest with you, they obviously trade Monte for Shake Milton, Troy Brown Jr., and a 2030 second round pick. So if that 2030 round second round pick is listening, I think you were in 6th grade right now. So, hey, man, who knows if we'll even keep that pick? But hey, You never know where Minnesota is going to be in 2030 in 6 years. But initially, what did you think of this trade? Do you think that they got fair value for a Monte Morris?
Based off of the 6-game sample size that we saw from him, I would say yeah. I think that if he would have been healthier and he would have been able to play those first 43 games, I think he probably would. I think not only would the Pistons record have been a lot bit differently, but I don't think that he would have been traded at all. They would have tried to keep him long term. But I mean, the fact that it just did not work out the way they wanted to, and to be fair to him, we brought you home to be a part of something special that we're building, and we weren't able to fulfill that. Let's just go ahead and still address some areas that we need while putting you in a better position. I think it was a fair deal to everybody all around. I mean, Shake Milton and Troy Brown may feel a little bit differently, but for Monte, the Pistons and the Timberwolves, I think it was a solid deal. I think it's just jarring because he was a Flint native. Former Michigan Mr. Basketball. It was such a great story about him returning home. He was going to be this guy to be expect to serve backup point guard. I know I jumbled that, but he was supposed to serve as the backup to Cade Cunningham, and it just didn't happen. And now that he's finally healthy, he didn't even really get a chance to get his legs up under him, and boom, he's on another team. So I think it was just more so that shocking how quickly the trigger got pulled on him here after 6 games. But at the end of the day, the NBA is a business, and right now you could see that it was a little bit different with him being out there as opposed to Killian. Having said that, it still didn't look like Morris was at his full normal self. So I get the move. I do. Because also too, what this does is this also frees up more time for Marcus Sasser, who has earned it. He's definitely earned it. He's earned his sink or swim moment. So I think it was I don't want to say whether it was a good or bad trade. It's an understandable trade.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I think I had texted you earlier in the week. I said I heard Monte to Minnesota is probably going to happen. And you kind of have to look at the organization and who's a part of that front office. And it's Tim Connolly who drafted Monte Morris when he was in Denver.
And he wanted it last year, if I'm not mistaken.
He did. So they even tried to make a trade. I learned this week with the Wizards, and the Wizards weren't interested. Obviously, the Pistons traded second for him, and they get him. And you're getting two guys that, at the end of the day, are NBA players. Troy Brown Jr. I think is a huge upgrade over Isaiah Livers. And he's only 24 years old too. I mean, he's still fairly young.
Which is with his experience, that's crazy.
Yeah, he had a quote yesterday, and I know Amari posted it after the game, and he was like telling Cade, like, they know you're gonna shoot when you go off 1 foot. He's like, go off 2 feet and just follow bait him. And it's crazy to me that he said that because he's only 24 and he's only 2 years older, but he's already a vet in the locker room, which I think adds value. I liked him out there. He looked like the defense looked a lot better with him out there. And I think the Pistons wanted this to get a look at him. Like, if they like him, cool, they can re-sign him. If not, like, they can get rid of him. I think he's those 3-and-D wings that I think a lot of Pistons fans were hammering for this summer. And you got a guy that, possibly could be that for the team. Maybe he's a starter. Maybe he's off the bench. You never know. And Shake Milton, I think, backup point guard. In case of emergency, or Monty was playing him as the second backup behind Cade. He's a guy that I was really high coming out of college. Like, he could shoot the shit out of the ball. And I don't know what happened when he went to Minnesota. They basically told him, like, shoot the ball, you're going to the bench. Like, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, he has some solid time in Philly. I think he was I think at one point he was, I don't want to say in the top 5 or something like that, but he was recognized as one of the better 6 men of the year of the league.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, like, I think both of these guys are just going to get, a fresh start, more opportunities. And I think you can kind of evaluate if you want to have them on your team long term. And I just want to say, like, this move to me was just a marginal move. And I think a lot of the moves were very marginal. There wasn't, like, a quarter, like, this deadline to me, I thought was one of the most quietest deadlines in terms of star movement. Like, there wasn't really, like, Kyrie Irving trade like last year, or like James Harden to the, like, to Brooklyn. Like, it was pretty quiet, in my opinion.
I don't think anybody, I think right now we're seeing the NBA, and this is just my opinion, I think we're seeing the NBA with so much parity that I don't think anybody was really interested in helping anybody else. I mean, before, some guys, they'll just be like, all right, you'll see some crazy stuff at that deadline before where it's just like a superstar's going to a team and like, why the heck did they give him to them? They didn't get nothing out of the deal. This year, it just kind of seemed like everybody, like you said, they made marginal small moves to increase, make their team a little bit better or add more depth for a playoff run. But it didn't seem like anybody was just in the business of helping anybody out. Like, normally you would hear something about the Lakers trying to make some miraculous trade happen. Nobody was interested in helping the Lakers out. I mean, you heard rumblings about what Phoenix wanted to do and who they wanted to get in. Mm-hmm. Nobody was interested in helping Phoenix out. So it was an interesting deadline for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix trying to get Miles Bridges. I know this is unrelated. Their asking price was absolutely ridiculous. Like, you're not getting one of their best young prospects in a first for Miles Bridges. Like, it's not going to happen. And I think the new CBA has a lot of teams scared because they don't want to go in that first and second apron trading for stars either. Yeah, it's like I've still tried to read the new CBA and I still don't fully understand it.
It's some very confusing language.
Yeah, but it is.
I'm gonna probably not this week because I got homework, but I'm probably gonna take another crack at it. But it's some very confusing language in there for sure.
For sure. One of the trades we made, which was we helped Philly out. And I'm kind of glad we did get a pick out of it, even though it's not a really good pick. So Philly basically salary dumped Daniel House. Yeah. And it was a second-round pick via the Knicks. And for you guys that are wondering, the pick currently is sitting at 53rd overall. So it's a really bad second-round pick. obviously because the Knicks are playing really good basketball right now.
Yeah.
And if that Daniel House name sounds familiar, you should probably know why. Google it. I'm not going to get into it. All you have to do is research Daniel House bubble, and you'll get a it's a pretty funny story. But I did some housekeeping. Wanted to update Pistons fans that we did waive Daniel House so we could sign with a contender,
Yeah.
and we did get a second out of it. We don't really have to talk about it too much, but if you have anything to add, like, go for it.
Nah, I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Yeah. Like I said, one of my friends that worked at Disney World at the time, she was just like, yeah, she's like, he almost like crashed the bubble. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
I'll have to tell you that stuff over off air, dude. It's funny.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that one alone.
100%. Probably the biggest trade for the Detroit Pistons was the New York Knicks trade. Obviously,
Yeah.
we talked about it at the top of the podcast, Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic. So the full trade details for Pistons fans that don't know, they got Quentin Grimes, Malachi Flynn, Evan Fournier, Ryan Arcidiacono, and 2 second-round picks. I know for a fact Ryan Arcidiacono got waived. Quentin Grimes, still part of the team. Malachi Flynn, I'm not sure what they're going to do there. Maybe he's going to be a part of the team. Maybe he won't. But overall, what did you think of this trade? And do you think the Pistons got fair value for Alec Burks and Bojan Bogdanovic?
So I just seen Omari post a video of Malachi and Evan. They're at the shoot around right now.
Okay.
So I mean, at least for right now, Malachi's there. At least for right now. But I think that, again, how much were you really going to get for Bogey and Burks at this stage of the game? I mean, if you were there were rumors they were getting a couple of first last year for them at the deadline. Again, we don't know because it didn't happen, but the reports are out there. And then again, on Friday, Troy Weaver did at least allude to the fact that there were better offers last year. So Evans a little bit up there. I think Evans like 31, if I'm not mistaken. Malachi, who knows what they do with him. But the Quentin Grimes one is a little sneaky. That's a sneaky acquisition. And now you have Quentin reunited with his homeboy, Marcus Sasser. So that's gonna be pretty interesting. I want to see what he's gonna be able to bring to the to this young union as well. This is another guy that he can fit right in there with them and grow as well, help with that offense out. So I think that one, to be able to get that young prospect and asset for a Burks that was on a slump, and then a Bogey that you just don't know what you're gonna get out of him as he gets older. I mean, it was solid. If I had to give it like a letter grade, I would say I'm floating somewhere between B minus C plus. It's not bad, but it's not. I'm not gonna go like, oh, they killed it. No, I'm not going to go that far. But I mean, Evan, Grimes a little bit of a slump this year, but I mean, he's still shooting well from beyond the arc. Want to see him, pick his overall field goal percentage up, but it was good. It was good.
Yeah, I gave this trade, and I was a little bit more harsh. I gave this trade like a C minus. I gave it like an A plus. I gave it A plus for the Knicks. Even though I saw some Knicks fans yesterday, man, they were losing their shit because Burks and Bojan just were chucking and not playing any defense. But I think for the Knicks, just makes so much sense to add more bench scoring for Tom Thibodeau.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it for the Knicks. For the Pistons, I didn't like it for the fact that you couldn't get your first back from them. I thought if you could have got your first back from them, that would have been really enticing. But obviously, they still, own the Detroit Pistons pick. It is, heavily protected, top 18 protected this year. But hey, eventually that pick will convey into a first round pick. And who knows if the Pistons are going to be a team that is in playoff contention. And if that's the case, the Knicks are going to get your pick. I think for Bojan, like you mentioned at the top of the podcast, they had better offers last year. To me as a fan, that was kind of pissed me off when I heard that, because a lot of fans have had that opinion. Like, the year to sell Bojan off was last year when everyone was knocking on the door. The Dallas Mavericks were knocking on the door. The Lakers were knocking on the door. Philly. Absolutely. I mean, Philly, like, we almost got Marcus Morris basically back in Detroit, but we elected to, trade with the Knicks, which I much would have rather had Marcus Morris in Detroit. That's just me, though. I've always been a fan of his. I was kind of surprised we didn't get at least, some kind of, like, the seconds are okay. And I looked at them. They're a few years down the road, but I just think you kind of settled and you're kind of like, you know what? I'm not going to get what I'm asking for. I'm just going to, trade these two vets off that really didn't impact winning. And it is what it is at this point.
Yeah. I mean, just, go ahead and put Bogey and put Burks in a better situation. Maybe they'll be able to go ahead and, help the Knicks do something. Right now, they were just. But I think Burks helped Cade and Ivy grow, but at the same time, I think that as far as what he was able to contribute to this group, it was maxed out. Same thing with Bogey, and I think it was just one of those times to go ahead and part ways, get a little bit younger, see what you got, see what you can do with some fresh faces, some fresh energy in there, because that is the one thing that they needed. They needed new energy within that unit, because it just felt like on some times when they were get out to these hot starts, they did not have the energy off the bench to sustain it.
Yeah.
And they got rid of a lot of pieces that did not provide that energy. I mean, they got rid of Bagley, they got rid of Livers, they got rid of Gallinari. They requested waivers on him, even though he just got here. Bogey, again, when he's feeling good, he's feeling good. But again, he's getting up there. Burks, again, down year. So it was smart to go ahead and bring in that new energy. I do think that if they were able to go ahead and get Morris back, that would have been that veteran voice that would have been a guy that could step in and be a veteran voice and contribute immediately. But also, too, that's probably a guy that wants to win as well. And things could have got a little bit interesting. You know how the Morris twins are.
Yeah.
Things could have got a little bit interesting with this group. So
I mean, they both played in Detroit. I was always a big fan of Marcus Morris. I know some fans like you'd rather have Marcus Morris versus Quentin Grimes. That's not the conversation I'm having.
Yeah.
The conversation I'm having is the veteran presence. Quentin Grimes is a hell of a player. I just don't know how the hell Monty Williams is going to use him, because the way, if you watch Quentin Grimes, he loves playing the passing lanes. He's a very sneaky defender. He's a good defender too. And I've talked to some people that are Knicks fans. They're like, he's a good player. He's just very inconsistent. He doesn't have games where you look at the box score and he's averaging like 20 points a game for like over 10 games. Like he's still a young player. He's still inconsistent. But from the front office perspective, I can understand them getting excited for Quentin Grimes, because in their mind, they're probably thinking like, hey, that's a first-round talent. Let's go get him. Let's see what we can do with Quentin Grimes. I just question how he's going to be used, because this team has so much depth at guard. It's just like, where does he play? Where is he going to be in the rotation? Like, is Marcus Sasser's minutes now going to be lessened because now you have Quentin Grimes? I mean, he only played 14 minutes last night. Then you got Shake Milton, Malachi Flynn. Like, where is he going to play? Where is he going to be in the pecking order? And I just don't have those answers. Monty Williams, sometimes it's like he presses like random on some starting lineup some days. It's just like, I just don't know, man. Like, as a fan, I like Grimes. I just don't know where they're going to slot him in at.
Somebody's going to be with a DNP every now and then, if not consistent DNPs. And I don't think that's going to. I'm over here kind of confused because I'm like, all right, you got Cade, you got Cade, and you got Ivy, cool. You got Sasser, and you got Shake, and then you got Grimes, you got yes. It's an
Malachi
overflow.
Flynn, like
Malachi Flynn is just like, yeah, somebody's. Malachi could be one of those odd men out. He could be getting the. He's definitely going to probably be the odd man out. Sasser's minutes are definitely probably going to get cut into because you got to see what you have in Grimes, and Monty Williams has already shown a tendency to take a flyer on a guy that he may feel has some talent and bring him in the gym and see what they could get out of him. So, yeah, Sasser's minutes could get cut. Not something you necessarily want, or who knows, maybe Shake's minutes could get cut. Maybe you might end up they're just going to see him for the first couple of games and see what they got. Then boom, you might be throwing Shake behind Sasser. But somebody's definitely not going to be pleased with their minutes getting cut, and we'll probably see that over these next couple of games of this West Coast trip, and maybe even one game when they return home and play the Magic on the 24th.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because I before we got in the podcast, I was looking at the point guard depth. I'm like, how the hell did we get more point guards out of this deadline than we had when we started the season? I was like,
kind of funny,
man. It's like I get the trade deadline, like they completely overhauled the roster. Like this reminds me when LeBron James was in Cleveland and people were calling him legit GM. Because he would trade half the damn roster. That's what it reminded me of. Like the old Cavs teams where he just had a completely new team every year. It was insane.
There were so many moves on the trade deadline. I believe that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe after the Daniel House one came the Bogdanovich one. And it's like as soon as I'm typing one, I'm like, what the dude, can y'all space these out a little bit? I mean, y'all making my day a little bit longer. I was writing all day because they were coming back to back to back to back to back. Like Troy worked the phone lines that day, those 2 days.
He honestly did. I did want to get into everyone that got waived. Because
Okay.
there was a lot of movement, and I don't know if people watching or Pistons fans really got to keep up. Like you said, it seemed like every 10 minutes, Pistons trade. So the Detroit Pistons waived Joe Harris, guy that they traded for, guy that was rumored to be part of the Zach LaVine trade. I don't think he has any miles left. That knee looks completely shot. He's not the Joe Harris that I think the front office thought he was going to be. So my question to you is, and I know this is kind of off topic with the trade deadline, is, looking back at this summer's free agency, you waived Joe Harris, who you traded for, you used a majority of your cap space to get, and you traded for Monte Morris. Looking back, do you kind of think they went into this past summer's free agency and maybe they have some regrets? Because you look at the free agency this year and Kory, I don't know who they're going to target with all this cap space. The list is very underwhelming if I'm a Pistons fan. I'm not getting too excited with some of the names out there.
Ooh, that's a real tough question. I'm gonna say that there might be some regrets. There might be some. I think the acquisition of Joe Harris was the more mind-boggling one. I think getting Monte Morris through that trade with how they did it, that was smart. I mean,
Yeah.
it didn't work out because he got injured pre-training, during training camp. I mean, and nobody could have saw that coming. So, but I think Troy shouldn't catch any flack for that one. That was actually a smart move because what you did was, you needed a backup point guard to Cade Cunningham, and you solidified a guy that not only has experience as a starter, but is also who was willing and ready to play that backup role. And with Cade having some inconsistent health, that was a really smart move. You went ahead and got a savvy veteran on a expiring deal where you didn't have to commit long term and see what he can do. It just didn't work out. Joe Harris was kind of interesting because Joe Harris has been injured over these past couple of seasons. So it was just like, I didn't understand where that one was going to go. And then it reared its ugly head this year. He only played like 16 games.
Yeah.
And that one, and I think when it comes to Monte, I think it was just bad luck. When it comes to Joe Harris, I believe, yeah, there may be some regret. Maybe they could have used some of that money and added some, in no disrespect to who they acquired, but who knows, maybe could have added a better piece or pieces with that money. So
yeah. I was calling like just for like a name. Like I thought Kelly Oubre. Like if you were to sign Kelly Oubre, let's just say you give him $10 million, like he's probably coming to Detroit. I thought the Joe Harris trade. I was kind of scratching my head. I'm like, okay, the Monte Morris trade to like what you were saying. I 100% agree. I thought for the value that you got him, he was on an expiring like $9-10 million deal. I didn't hate that move. The Joe Harris trade, when I look back at it, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, are you trying to surround this young core with, players that can actually play basketball, players that can contribute? And I just kind of felt like this front office is just, they were content with just evaluating and they weren't really focused on if the wins came. They just wanted to see if, Cade can be a high usage guard. How does Ivy look next to Cade? Which I've talked at nauseum. Like, I think you can evaluate and still add talent around your core. And
absolutely.
I don't know how, like, they don't, like, the front office didn't think of, signing mid-tier guys that, help this, young core out.
Yeah, I didn't. When they look back on free agent, when they look back on this, that's going to be the one thing that's going to probably haunt them, because I mean, going into this offseason, the way that they've set this up, it's almost like and again, people, this is not me saying go get this player. I'm talking about off the list of who's out there. It's almost Tobias Harris or bust this summer with the money they have.
Yeah.
That's the way they're positioned right now. It's Tobias Harris or bust. And Tobias is a great player. I mean, look, I know people are like, well, he played here before. Look, he played here before, but it wasn't like he was bad. They just moved him for Blake Griffin. But Tobias is still a bucket. It's just the question you have is he a needle mover?
Yeah.
And the Pistons are now in a position where if they don't go get him, then again, like you're saying, who are they going to target that is going to be a needle mover? Because you're gonna have so much cap space that you got to use it somewhere.
Yeah, the two guys that are remaining now. This was a wish list that came out this year from Shams Charania. OG Anunoby is going to re-sign with the Knicks. I think we can both agree there.
Absolutely.
Pascal Siakam. The Pacers gave up the farm for Pascal Siakam. Pascal Siakam is going to sign a supermax with the Pacers. I think we can both agree there.
Yeah.
The other two players, one that you mentioned, Tobias Harris, I'm going to give him 30-40 million at that stage of his career. I don't know how that's going to sit with the fan base. Nothing against Tobias Harris. I think he's a fine player, good basketball player, but is he really going to get you maybe a 7 seed with this young core? I don't know. I don't know how much he has left in the tank. And the last player that was on that wish list is a player that I think a lot of people are familiar with. He went to Michigan State. There's off the court issues, and that's Miles Bridges. The Pistons have been really interested in Miles Bridges. I learned recently, before the off the court stuff happened, they were willing to give him an offer sheet this summer. And that the off the court stuff happened. Obviously, they They backed out from giving him an offer sheet. But I think those are your realistic targets. Tobias Harris and Miles Bridges. Those are the two, small forwards that they're looking at to target. And if that's their big splash and their master plan, I would hate to be the Pistons PR. I really would because
I don't think, and I know some people are gonna say, "Why are you bringing this up?" I'm bringing this up because I have to. I really do not see a scenario where the Pistons add Miles Bridges. It's and you can talk about how well he's played this season. He's playing pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But for the Pistons specifically, I'm not talking about any other team. Detroit Pistons specifically, I don't know how they bring him in given the optics already for their organization. They're already under a lawsuit from a former exec for sexual harassment where she's suing the organization and Rob Murphy.
Yeah.
The Pistons cannot have even taken a serious look at Ime Udoka when they were going through their coaching search last year. I don't see how you bring in a guy with Miles Bridges that has his checkered off the court domestic issues when you're undergoing a lawsuit for sexual harassment. I just don't see how you do it. It is a PR nightmare. And again, there are people here, if Bridges did not have that situation over his head, we're probably not having a lot of different discussions and we're watching Bridges in a Pistons uniform. Because those happened, this is where we are. I don't see it happening at all. There is one other name that I was doing, and I went and did a real quick look, and I don't know how updated this is, but gotta see what DeMar DeRozan's gonna do. I don't see him. I mean, you still got Dwayne Casey in the front office, so you might be able to do some sweet talking right there. I mean, it's not like everything is going super great with the Bulls. I mean, Levine cannot stay healthy. I think that if you bring DeRozan in to play that three, which he can, I mean, he's shown it. That's a bucket. that's your 20 to 20. That's your 22 to 25 guy a night, and then who can get you 35. And he's a savvy veteran, been around the league. Is going to command some respect. Going to be able to help with the growth of Asar Thompson. And I believe that's a guy they could possibly target as well. But again, you're really looking at a handful of names that if you don't go get them with that cap room money, it's a bust. And when you're one of the worst teams, when you're one of the worst teams in the NBA, right now you have the worst record. You got to finish strong to be able to sell yourself on those guys coming to Detroit.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I know I've mentioned the Rob Murphy stuff on this podcast because some people, they're not as locked in, with the stuff. Like he was a, former, Eastern Michigan University head basketball coach, I believe.
Yep. Yes, he was.
He worked as a general manager for the Motor City Cruise. He got promoted, I want to say it was last year, to be not only the general manager of the Cruise, but also the general manager of the Detroit Pistons, and all that stuff happened. And I know Local 4 did like a whole video interview with that girl. You guys can go look it up and like read the story because I'm not taking sides to it. It's not my responsibility, and I think it would be irresponsible for me to even take sides. As for the Miles Bridges stuff, I've always talked as a basketball fit. It makes sense off the court, like you said. PR nightmare. I 100% agree. Like if he didn't have any of that off the court issues, I think the Pistons would be all in. Same with a whole lot of other teams. I mean, you look at what he's doing right now. Currently, he's putting up 30, 40 piece games right now. Like he's balling out of his
He's
mind.
going crazy. It's going
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, like, I think there's a world when I'm looking at free agents, they could just start making calls to make trades. I've told you before, and you've told me too, like that's not a bad idea. Like I think Andrew Wiggins could be a real target. I really do. And I know when people hear Andrew Wiggins and they're going to look, how he's played this year. And obviously, he's dealing with stuff off the court as
Yeah.
well. Family matters. So his head's maybe not mentally in the game, but I think you get a guy in Andrew Wiggins who I think could help you out on the wing, hit some 3-point shots. And he's a professional at the end of the day. He was a big part of the Golden State Warriors when they won their last champion. And I know that's not like a sexy name that Pistons fans want to hear, but I think those are the type of players that they'll probably target, kind of mid-tier, like B- guys, to try to get them out of where they're currently in. But it wouldn't surprise me if they look at free agency, they're not in love with anybody. They're not in love with paying Klay Thompson, because I think that's like the best free agent that you could possibly get. Like, you're not going to pay Klay Thompson at this stage of his career what he's probably commanding. Wouldn't surprise me if they look at teams that, have guys that are on a couple more years of their contracts and it's like, hey, let's go trade for Harrison Barnes. Let's go trade for Andrew Wiggins. Like, let's try to get like these mid-tier type of small forwards.
I had to laugh for a quick second. I'm leaving that one alone. but Andrew Wiggins, yeah, we talked about it. I mean, Andrew Wiggins makes more sense than people really want to believe, because again, he's a guy that is on a contract already, so he would be with the Pistons for a couple of years. And also, too, with the way the salary cap is rising, Andrew Wiggins is on a very, very, very friendly contract, salary cap wise. So I think that's why it would make sense. He's a veteran. He's been in a couple of locker rooms. I mean, besides being an NBA champion, you can argue that year that the Warriors won their title, he was the second best player on the team. There's an argument for that to be made. And I think with the way things have gone with the Golden State Warriors, I think the ship just ran its course on a lot of players in that group, and a lot of those guys could just benefit from a fresh start. I think that Andrew Wiggins could come here and he could be your starting small forward day one. And that takes nothing away from Asar Thompson, because he still has, as great as he is, he still has a little bit more room to grow. But again, you can not only have Wiggins as your day one piece, but again, because of his contract, he's a very tradable piece down the line should you need to move him. So I mean, I think that's a guy they should target, but through the free agency, it's just going with the way the season has gone, it's going to be tough. If they right now they're 8-43, if I'm not mistaken. So 30 games left. I think to really be able to seriously sell themselves on free agents, you're going to be asking this team to win at least 12 more games at the basement, 15 to 16 if we're trying to get greedy here. But realistically, you're hoping this team gets to 12 more games so they can at least say, hey, we were 3 games better than last year. So you'll be able to put that feather in your cap. But I mean, free agency is going to be, I'm telling you right now, the names are not sexy, but if you're able to get one of those guys in, like a DeMar or a Tobias, I mean, you did good, because that's who you're at this point. That's who you have to get. If you don't get them, you failed free agency. It sucks
Yeah,
to say, but that's where they're at.
I mean, I'm just looking at some of the forwards that are out there, and I mean, like Tobias Harris is probably the name that I think Pistons fans and the Detroit Pistons would target. Like you mentioned, DeMar DeRozan. I mean, Royce O'Neal is kind of an under the radar guy that played with the Brooklyn Nets. I believe he got traded, and he's with the Phoenix Suns right now, if I do remember correctly. That's kind of an under the radar guy. He was undrafted. He played with the Utah Jazz. Part of that like Joe Johnson, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert team. He's a good 3-and-D wing, can pass a little bit. Because there's not like a whole lot out there. Like Kyle Anderson, I doubt they want slow-mo in Detroit. Otto Porter Jr., I wouldn't be mad at. He was a part of the Golden State Warriors championship team too. I think him and Wiggins were like really, big pieces to that championship team. But like you look at the small forward position, it's just you look at the names and you're like, do I really get excited about that? Am I really gonna spend my cap space on that? Like, for all intents and purposes, I can just see Troy being aggressive. And, we're getting Woj text at 3 a.m. that he traded for somebody with that cap space, because if they're not in love with someone in free agency, I mean, they can this front office, if you can date back from like 2020, they have used majority of their cap space in trades. They haven't really been free agent, outside of like Jeremy Grant. Like they really haven't, gone after guys. And I know that's another guy that Pistons fans would welcome back, given that, big contract that he did sign. I mean, I wouldn't rule that out. Like who's to say that they keep their draft pick this year? Who's to say that they don't try to package their draft pick, because they can trade it once they figure out what pick they have on draft night, and maybe they package it to someone else. Maybe you can package that draft pick and use your cap space to go get a legitimate, small forward on this basketball team.
Just wondering who else they would have to package along with that pick, because that's going to be the big thing. But I mean, again, to your point, if that's realistically what they're going to be looking at, and I'm going to bang this. Hold on, let me just do one quick check before I bang this drum again, because I just don't know the exact number off the top of my head, and hold on. Are they where I think they are? Yes, they are. All right, I'm gonna bang this drum one more time.
Okay.
Pay attention to what happens with the Pelicans as they finish the rest of this season. They have a top 10 payroll, and they're not making playoffs. Right now, they're the 7th seed, but with the way they're playing, they could easily slip out of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them keeping that super high payroll, and they're not winning games. So who knows? I'm not going to sit up here and say they're about to get Brandon Ingram. No, I'm not saying that, but I will say that the Pistons have, when we find out what that pick is going to be, the Pistons are going to have some assets to be able to make some things happen. And when you have a team like that has such a high payroll and they're not winning games, you see teams like that break it up all the time. Like, okay, CJ McCollum's getting this, Zion's getting this, Brandon's getting this. We know we're not going to get that much for CJ as he's aging. You probably want to keep, let's see how they feel about Zion, if they're ready to pull the plug with him yet or not. I mean, that would leave Ingram as the odd man. Now, I'm not saying, he's bad and he got to go. It's a business issue. You're having such a high payroll and you're not having any results for it. So keep an eye on that. But I mean, the Pistons have normally built their teams through trades. I mean, that's just from GM to GM to GM. That's just been the team's history. They've always really made their moves through the trades, but again, they have all the cap space at probably the wrong time.
Yeah, I mean, I thought to have cap space like last summer was the summer to have cap space. I mean, I look what Houston did, and it's just like I've talked to the other Pistons beat reporters like yourself, and they're like, yeah, they want to have like a Houston Rockets type offseason. I'm like, that's cool. I said, but look at the free agents. Like, who are they going to get?
I mean, Houston made so many moves. I'm like, where are they getting all of this money? They were spending money left and right. They got Van Vliet, Dylan Brooks. I mean, they just really loaded up the squad. I mean, right now I'm looking at these free agents along with you. I mean, outside of the guys we mentioned, Tobias, and DeMar, and Royce, you're not really looking too hot. A lot of these other guys are up there in age, and some of them are small marginal moves. Like you're not going to go grab any of these guards. I mean, you're pretty set at that position. I mean, I think Kelly Olynyk would be a nice addition, a guy that's shown to be able to, stretch the floor. But our fans going to be excited about, we brought Kelly Olynyk back. It's either going to be a lot of small moves for them in free agency if they don't find some type of home run somewhere. And I'm just looking. I don't know where the home run is going to be unless you go get somebody that people are not going to be too excited about.
Yeah, it's honestly, like, when I look at it, I'm like, I don't know what the plan is. I don't know who they're trying to target. If they're putting other eggs in one basket for Tobias and Tobias resigns with somebody else, I'll probably stay off Twitter for that day. Because it's just gonna be it's gonna be funny.
Yeah, because again, if you to your point, you're free agent. So if Tobias was your guy, maybe if it's okay. If and this is again, we're talking if Tobias really was a part of their plans, that should have been a trade they should have made to get him in the building and get him along as part of the process moving forward. To try to have to go after him and compete with other teams, that's where I think it gets like, okay, you sure you want to do that?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see these next couple of months what transpires with this team, how they develop, if they can, not tie or break the all-time losing season in NBA history. It's going to be interesting. The draft, if they get fifth again, or if they win the lottery, like, what are they going to do there? Because it's like, depending who you ask, like, Alex Sarr's the number one overall pick, Ron Holland's the number one overall pick. Like, you look at this draft, it's not the strongest draft. There's talent, don't get me wrong, but there's not that quote unquote generational talent. That LeBron in this draft. There's not like like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if they got fifth again, because they're sitting at 1, and like it's a 50% chance of falling to 5. It's like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what does happen. I think it's going to be a very active summer, much like the trading deadline. Do you have maybe time for one or two questions that some people watching live want to ask you?
Oh yeah.
Oh, for sure. Just want to be respectful of your time. I don't know if you have any plans for Super Bowl Sunday and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I'm not the disgruntled guy. I mean, I have no dog in the fight. I'm gonna watch the game. Like I just said, I swear everything right now. The one thing that's gonna ruin this game for me is if I see Taylor Swift more than 3 times in the first quarter. I swear I'll cut it off and watch a movie. I'll cut it off and watch a movie, I swear.
That's actually kind of funny. This came from Keb Khan earlier, and he said, what kind of effect do you think trades will have on this upcoming draft and approach to free agency? I know we just talked about this for, it seemed like 20 minutes, but
the draft, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what kind of effect it's gonna have on the draft. I have not even, for one, to be quite honest, I have not gone into any type of evaluation of who they could get. And I probably honestly won't do that until we know what pick they really get. I'm gonna keep my eye on some guys, but I won't really do such a deep dive until we know for sure. That's the one kind of sucky thing about the lottery. You got to kind of wait before you can really start projecting. But toward free agency, I will say this. I think the one person who's going to affect what the Pistons do in free agency is Fontecchio. I think that they're going to I think that if he balls out over these next 30 games, I'm not sitting up here saying that they're going to go offer him some super crazy contract. But what I will say that is if he does show to be a proven piece, they will try to bring him back, and that will just be one area they may not have to look for, whether it's as a starter or as a depth piece. So I think that's the one guy that they have so far that's going to affect them the most. And also to Troy Brown Jr. because again, he's still 24 and he's seasoned. So those two guys may affect what they do in free agency because it's young and seasoned depth. So those are two. Yeah,
I agree with that. You never know. I just think this is the first year where they don't keep their draft pick. I think it would be really hard to sell to fans another 19, 20, 20-year-old one rookie. I wouldn't be surprised if it is moved. But hey, you never know. They might win the lottery and have a front court of Alex Sarr and Jalen Duren, which would just be nasty. This comes from Donnell Brown, and I'm surprised we haven't mentioned him on the podcast. So there were reports that the Pelicans were really interested in Isaiah Stewart. So Donnell wants to know, what are the future plans for Isaiah Stewart? And I'll go one step further. Do you think with all the moves that they made, he's still in the starting lineup?
You know what's crazy? And rake me over coals if you want to. With us talking about the Pistons' future for the past hour and 11 minutes that we've been going on so far, that is not even a person I factored all the way into these moves. I think that, for one, I think that Isaiah Stewart is a good player. Here's why I say that. He's hustle and he's hard. He's somebody that you definitely need on your team. I think when they use him as a low post guy, as opposed to trying to turn him into a stretch forward, that's when you're really able to see you're able to really appreciate his game the most, because even though he can hit a three, I don't think he's really a stretch four. I think he's just more so of a guy that gets his bread and butter, 5 to 10 feet away from the basket. But when you're talking about the future plans of this team, and they've already shown the desire to want that stretch four, I think you could see some interesting things happen with Isaiah Stewart moving forward. This is also a guy that has had some injury issues as well, and has been out for. I mean, he was last season. He was out for points at a time with the shoulder injury. This year, we're talking about ankle issues. So they offered him the 4-year, $64 million deal last year. If my math is correct, and if I'm wrong, again, rake me over coals, but I believe that with the way the salary cap is going to go up, Stewart's deal is going to be more closer towards the mid-level exception. So I think that when we were talking about them trading their picks and trying to make some moves, he has a salary that is going to be very, very friendly to be able to move. It's just all about if you decide that you want to move him. I think that what we've seen from the Pistons in this sample size over the past, let's just say 5 games, you have to. I think bringing him off the bench should be for consideration, just off of how they're moving. So for this season, when he comes back, I see them trying to slow roll him in there. He might be a rotation player off the bench. Beyond that, we got to see. I see. I have no intel, but I see a situation where something could happen because he has a very trade friendly contract, and for the team that they want, there would have to be some changes.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because when I look at Isaiah Stewart, we didn't even talk about him for like the first hour.
Yeah,
And I'm like, well, Asar was playing power forward yesterday, and I think the way they've been using Asar is how you get away with his, lack of shooting.
Yep.
With Stewart, they had him off the bench before he had an injury. He had like a toe injury, and then he had an ankle injury, and then he's been
Yep.
out with the ankle injury ever since then. I think where I see his value is at the backup center position, because the drop off between Jalen Duren and James Wiseman right now is very noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you transition Isaiah Stewart to a backup 5 or even a backup 4, whatever you want to do, I think he's better suited off the bench. And I love that you mentioned that looking at his contract for the foreseeable future, it is going to be a very, very tradable contract. I know Dallas has been interested in Isaiah Stewart. Probably not anymore since they did trade for PJ Washington. Boston is always sniffing around with Isaiah Stewart. I think there are going to be contenders that always need a guy like Isaiah Stewart. And I think that's why I like his game. I think starting, a lot of fans have a problem with it. They wouldn't have a problem with it if he was that energy guy. He was that glue guy off the bench. Like if you slot him in at backup center, I think a lot of fans wouldn't be so loud about benching him and having him come off the bench. But that's kind of been my opinion on the whole Isaiah Stewart starting it, trying to make him into the stretch 4 when he's not really a stretch 4. He's more of an undersized 5 at the end of the day.
Yeah, I just think that's where where it's doing a disservice to him, because I mean first off, Isaiah Stewart's a great guy. Great guy. I mean, he's willing to give you a really in-depth insight into the game and what happened after the game. And he's also accountable. That's another thing that people really don't talk about. He's very accountable. I just think that the trying to convert him to the stretch 4 has been, it just hasn't worked out. It just hasn't worked out. And I think that the times where Stewart is on the floor and he's played closer to the rim and be in the paint, you've really saw, okay, this version of Stewart could really help out this team moving forward. And to your point, for the backup, if you decide to bring him off the bench behind Jalen Duren, I think that would also be great as well, because now you're using him in a spot where he really gets to play his bully ball, and then you're still keeping this great locker room leader and voice with the team. So again, if you decided to move me as a very trade-friendly contract, but if you decide to keep him, you have to, I believe that there has to be some conversations about type of usage.
Yeah, like I said, I think ultimately the reason why he hasn't been traded is, and I know fans aren't going to want to hear this, is Troy Weaver loves Isaiah Stewart.
So does Monty. So does Monty.
So does Monty. So at the end of the day, I know fans want him gone. They want him traded for whatever it is. I don't know if they don't like him, they don't like his skill set, whatever. I think he has value in the league, and I could see Pistons fans up in arms if we do trade him and he comes back to just bully us. Because it kind of seems like a recurring theme is when we draft someone, he's there for a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to turn into like a Dinwiddie or a Chris Middleton, but if contenders are calling about him, that should tell you all you need to know about him as a player. He's valuable, but he's not valuable the way the Pistons are currently using him. I think they're using him out of position. I think if you played him a good 15 to 20 minutes a night, Pistons fans really wouldn't have any complaints.
Yeah, because I mean the guy knows basketball and he can play basketball. I mean, I'm gonna defend him in that aspect. Again, it's just about the usage, because to your point, Stewart is going to go, if they trade him, Stewart's going to go somewhere else, and he's going to be just what the doctor ordered as far as from a toughness standpoint. And I've heard this, and I'm not going to say where I heard it from, but, and I did this again, when I say this is not me trying to insinuate Stewart is some bad guy or not, because he's not. But at the same time, you don't want a locker room full of choir boys. And Stewart has shown a tendency to be that enforcer that Piston teams are known and accustomed for having. I mean, you look back on the two championship squad. Well, the Bad Boys had a couple of enforcers. Heck, even the going to work Pistons, couple of enforcers. The Wallace Times too. You're gonna need somebody that's gonna be that guy. Stewart, you not only have that guy, you have that guy that wants to be here and see this through. You don't find too many guys that want to be able to see this through with the way this team is performing. There are 82 games in the season. The Pistons have not won 82 games in collective 4 seasons. You don't have too many guys that want to stick around and see that through. So it's like almost one of those be careful what you wish for things.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I view him as a Kevon Looney for this team. Like Kevon Looney for the Warriors is just the ultimate glue guy, hustles, rebounds, does all the dirty work. And to your point, you don't want choir boys. Like Stewart's about that life, man. Like
he's about that action. We've seen it so many times.
Yeah, I mean, going to games, like I remember Pat Bev. He was saying that he wanted to smoke with Stewart and stuff like that, and he went on his podcast saying like, "Heard you were looking for me." I was just like, "Man, Pat, don't even mess with him."
I mean, shoot. Besides the thing with LeBron, the one thing I always go back to with Stewart was when Draymond Green tried to I guess you could say punk him, and Stewart snatched him up so quick, like on some Mortal Kombat. Get over here! It was like, oh.
Saw the whites of Draymond's eyes. I know exactly. Yeah. I know that I've seen that play like repetitively. Draymond's like, "Oh shit, I can't punk this kid."
Yeah, so it's like you just hope they figure out a way to use him correctly before just going ahead and shipping him out of town.
For sure. I have one more question, and then because I know this is me and you've talked about this, and this comes from Organic Lindo, and he wants to know what will it take to get Brandon Ingram away from the New Orleans Pelicans?
Honestly, fans are not going to like what I'm about to say. First off, you have to wait to see what this pick is going to be. That's for one, because you're going to have to trade that. Get over it. You're trading that first round pick, and some other picks. I believe you would have to do that. You would definitely probably have to get rid of Stewart, and you would have to probably get rid of Asar. I don't see how you get Brandon Ingram and you're able to keep Asar Thompson. I mean, if the Pistons were somehow able to get Brandon Ingram without trading Asar Thompson, Cade Cunningham, Ivy, or Duran, then I don't care what you think about Troy Weaver. You got to crown him Executive of the Year at that moment if he were able to do that. But you would probably have to get rid of Stewart, Asar, and some type of the first round pick and probably some other stuff. But the flip side of that is, I mean, you're getting a guy that can you're getting a walking bucket.
30 on any given night.
You're getting a walking bucket that is going to have no worries about CJ McCollum, no worries about Duran. He's going to have the greenest of lights with a backcourt that are willing passers.
I think, and fans aren't going to like this. I'm a very blunt person. I'm telling you right now, the Pelicans would want your first this year. they would want Cade Cunningham or Jaden Ivy. I think
absolutely they would want him. They would definitely ask.
Yeah, like Brandon Ingram to me, I think he's one of the better scoring options in the NBA when he's healthy, when he's right. I think what it would take organic, like I think what Kory said, Sarr would probably be in the conversation. Your whole core four would be in the conversation, even Jalen Duren. And then that's where you have to kind of evaluate and see, like, do I really want to give up a guy that is really young on a rookie contract deal for a guy that's on a max deal? Now, I know Cade Cunningham is extension eligible this summer, and he'll probably get that full, rookie contract extension. But you kind of have to, like, down the line, we're going to have way more of these conversations. I know you're probably going to be writing articles at MLab about it. I'll probably be talking about it. Eventually, one of these guys will be traded. I just don't know who it's going to be because there's going to be superstars available, especially with this new CBA with the first and second apron. Teams don't want to go in the luxury tax. Like you said earlier, the Pelicans probably aren't going to make the playoffs. I think they're like right out of that 10 seed right now. There's a lot of teams like the Pelicans. There's a lot. Like I don't think you can get away with like trading like Sasser and Stewart for Brandon Ingram. Like if the Pelicans
this is not 2K, folks. You're gonna have to give up. You're gonna have to give up a asset to get an asset. This is how it works. This is you don't want to hear it because you really do. When you see an Ausar Thompson and how he plays, and how he plays defensively, I mean, you don't want to give that up. But at the same time, there are fans that want that guy that can go get them 30 a night and still show that they can play a little bit on be respectable on defense. So I mean, like you said, we're gonna have these talks, but if you want an asset, you're gonna have to give up something. It's just gonna be what it is. I will say this though, and again, this is just me speaking my opinion. I think touching that backcourt would be a big mistake. Breaking up that, I'm not trying to say, everybody else should be up for grabs. I'm just saying specifically, do not touch that backcourt. You have a backcourt of Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, two guys that both really work well with the ball in their hand, and they've shown a willingness to let each other get their shine and work together. That is really rare to have. I think they need to hold on to that as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, looking up Brandon Ingram's contract, because we're talking about it, he'll be a UFA in 2025. Which, that's around the corner. Maybe I doubt they do it. I really doubt they do it. Maybe they do a salary dump. I doubt it, but you never know how the season can go for them. I mean, we saw rumors this past summer, of Zion Williamson to the Detroit Pistons, which I think would be a horrible fit, especially for Zion. I think he needs to go out like in LA or something like that, where they can.
And people are going to laugh. There are a lot of reasons Detroit would be a bad place for Zion Williamson, if you catch my drift. I'm not going to go too deep. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that one.
Yeah, I mean, Coney, just to start. I mean, those Coney dogs hit different, man. They really do.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about the Conies, but
I know what you're talking about, man. I mean, there's some.
You don't need to be here.
Yeah, I mean, I won't talk about like the I forgot about her, to be honest with you. I completely forgot about Mariah Mills. I completely did. I didn't even know that's where you were going with it.
It's a lot of reasons here that this would be a bad place for Zion, man.
Yeah, I mean, people in the comments say no. I mean, there are Pistons here that I guarantee you are in the strip club like every night. Like, I'm not going to name names. I just know they used to play for the Pistons under the SVG era. They were in the strip club every damn night.
Oh, I'm not going to name names. I'll give you a true story, though. This is a true story. And I was not covering the game. Now, this is a game I was at as a fan. the Pistons were playing the Spurs, right? Pistons were playing the Spurs at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Immediately, so I was a nightlife photographer. So immediately after the game, like I'm not talking about I stopped and got gas or anything like that. I'm talking about I left the game when the final buzzer sounded and I got on 75 and went straight downtown. I parked my car and I walked into that club, and one of the Pistons starters was already in VIP. I'm like, how the F did you beat me down here? Did you not go to the locker room?
No shower.
How did you beat me? Like, I thought that was the most astonishing. I literally thought that I was tripping. I'm like, I know that ain't who I think it is. How did he beat me down here?
Yeah, man, I don't want to say it because we're live, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
you know what I'm talking about. I'm like, dude, you had to have that old like I don't know if anybody ever watched Family Matters when Steve Urkel had that little teleportation pad. That's the only way he could have beat me down there. That was something crazy.
I know one of my friends, she had texted, I know it's a completely off topic. She had texted me that she saw a Detroit Lion recently who I'll tell you who it was after we get off. He was at Legends the week of the 49ers game before they left to go out to San Francisco.
I'll say this much. You know what? Nope, I'm leaving it alone. I'll talk to you off the line. I'll talk to you afterward about that.
Yeah,
I'm not getting in trouble.
I'm not trying to get you in trouble, man. So we'll talk off there. But we could wrap this podcast up. If you want to plug anything you're working on, any stories, floor is yours.
All right, first off, just want to say thank you for having me on here. In these next couple of days, I'm probably gonna drop an article about some nightlife establishments, which is kind of funny we're saying that right now. Some nightlife establishments and restaurants that the Lions' current playoff run actually helped them, how they kind of helped them out, economy wise. And then as far as the Pistons, once everything is all, I guess you could say the dust is kind of settled and we know which direction they're going to go with, I'm going to actually go ahead and grade these moves and talk about, what I think could be, the future of this team moving forward over these next 30 games. So just stay tuned on mlive.com for that. And also, too, I'm going to be dropping more reels over the next couple of days, trying to go ahead and get my feet back wet and get in front of the camera. I had not, ever since I left the last place, I hadn't really been in front of the camera that much. So I need to go ahead and get back like you guys and getting my face back out here and talking more about sports and getting comfortable with it. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to, knock some of the cobwebs off.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like get your content out there before I go on Twitter and I was like, oh, that's Kory's video. Someone just stole it. Oh, motherfuckers.
Hey, you know what? Also, too, and everybody, I have to say this before we get off. I have to say this. You are watching a podcaster with integrity because he always gives credit if he uses somebody else's stuff. It's no taking it and passing it off as his own. He gives credit where credit is due. And if he has a question about something, then I mean, I have no problem helping him, Anthony, in any way, because I mean he does it the right way. I respect you for how you get down with it.
I mean, like I said, I'm not gonna name names, but they watch this podcast, they know who they are. And I don't talk to them anymore because of it. I didn't want to be associated with that mess. I didn't want to be associated with reporters coming at me because you steal their content and it goes viral on your page and like you're monetizing it, making money off of their hard work. I've always done that. I've always given credit because it's just the right thing to do, in my opinion. So like anytime I see stuff from you, I'm automatically gonna, whether it's on my Facebook page, Twitter, I'm gonna retweet it. I'm gonna reshare it. I'm not gonna download the video, put my logo on it, and say, "Oh, look at all these views I got." I think it's just stuff like that just pisses me off. Honestly, it really does.
Yeah, man, sure, just hit the share button. You gonna get the same likes, dude. Dang. That's all it takes.
For sure, man. I mean, like I said, I love talking basketball with you. You're always welcome on this podcast too. You ever want to do anything, you got my number. You can always hit me up. We can always do something.
Hey, like I said, this is your podcast, but whenever you want me on, I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say, let me make sure I can do it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we will talk to you guys next Sunday. I think it'll be close to All-Star break. Who knows what kind of podcast we're gonna have.
But one question. Eastside Johnny just asked a really good question. I want to answer this. He said, question for Kory. How are you able to balance beat writing, school, and fatherhood? I want to answer that one real quick.
Okay, go for it, man. Floor's yours.
I got one word for you. Coffee. Coffee. I literally have no idea. For those who do not know, I am in the middle of my master's of social work program at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. So I'll be done next August. And I also have a son that will be turning 1 in about a week and a half. And I'm covering 2 beats. I have no idea how I do it. And organic Lindo, I am not going to confirm or deny that. But yeah, just coffee and prayer, man. Because I'm telling you right now, this is no joke. It is like I get like about maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep a good night. I'll get 6. But you know what I'm telling you right now? I love every bit of it and I love learning it. So yeah.
For sure, man. I don't have a kid, but I do have a secondary job where I work for a high school sports media company that we broadcast Motor City Cruise games, Wayne State University athletics. Like after I get done with this podcast, I have to go watch 4 hours of Wayne State, send them their highlights because I had to cover 3 hockey games for a cancer event yesterday. I think this week I covered 10 games and it was basketball, hockey, everything. And like I said, I don't get much sleep either, but I still try to do this podcast each and every week for these guys because I actually love doing this.
You have to love doing it. That's the only way you get energy. It's really it. If you don't love it, it's a drag. But we both have a lot to do. We both have so much responsibilities, but when you actually love it, that's where you get the energy from. I don't feel like going and doing half of the stuff I have to do, but I love doing it. So that's where I get that little extra boost from. Especially when you got something juicy to put out there, you'll be dead and tired, and then somebody says something, you're like, ooh. I sometimes be shaking to get the content out. Like, oh my god, I know what this is about to do. So, yeah.
I said, or you're scrolling on Detroit sports Twitter and you just see people talking about stuff, and you're like, oh, look at this shit. Oh, let's go. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. We'll see you guys next Sunday. I'm gonna try to get another guest on. We'll see who I can get, but I appreciate you guys watching for an hour and 40 minutes. But see you guys next Sunday. Take care. Later.